Hello, 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 beautiful unicorns. Happy Thursday. Yana Kasperczak here, your spiritual awakening core energy coach. And my soul's purpose is to help you get your shit together so you can break free from that mental prison that you find yourself in and live the life that you are proud of, love, and excited to wake up to every single day. And live with a sense of fulfillment and drive and purpose. So, today, the topic that I have for you guys is talking about helicopter parenting. What is helicopter parenting? That's one thing that we'll talk and discuss. The second part will be how to overcome helicopter parenting. And as we're talking about it, I'll share the 22 examples that will help you to identify how you might be or at some point was showing up as a helicopter parent for your child. And at the same time, we'll talk about the potential damages or effects of being a helicopter parent or having been one. Also a reminder that everything is, everything is figure-outable, everything is doable, and that just because you have done something in the past and not in that way, let's say one of the two examples comes up and that was something that you did or how you managed your child, and now you're here learning about how you did things, and I don't want you to take this as a form of punishment for yourself or on yourself. That I want you to just learn and then grow from this point on. And practically everything is, like I said, figure-outable. It's also partially reversible, where you can do something about it. But if you are like some people, which I doubt that you are, because you're in this community of spiritual awakening women who are getting their shit together and they're working on themselves, that because you're part of this group, that you are taking accountability and doing something about it, and not just saying this is what it was, this is what I did, and then doing nothing about it. Okay, so I just want to make sure I have the group up here and running, ready to go. So I'm just going to read the definition of what helicopter parenting is, and I'm not an expert on helicopter parenting, but I would say I have experience in being a helicopter parent. And I will share my experiences and some of the examples. They will be relatable to me. And so here we go. Helicopter parenting is a style of parenting characterized by excessive involvement and control over a child's life. It often involves a high level of supervision, constant hovering, and an overemphasis on shielding the child from any potential harm or failure, trying to protect and keep the child safe. While the intention is usually rooted in love and concern, helicopter parenting can have negative consequences on a child's development. So I once was a helicopter parent, and I still, in some shape, way, or form, I catch myself being a helicopter parent, where right now it comes through as constantly reminding my kids of their responsibilities, and that part is still considered to be a helicopter parent, where I'm not trusting my kids to do what they're supposed to be doing because they don't do it day after day after day, because they don't want to, they don't feel like it, but it's for their own growth and evolution. So it is not necessarily my responsibility to keep them accountable for their own growth and development. And at the same time, it is our responsibility as a parent to ensure that our kids do what is going to benefit them in their future. So there is a fine line between those approaches, and we'll cover that a little bit. So let's talk about, I share with you what helicopter parenting is, which is you essentially being or trying to be in control and trying to keep your child safe and protect them. And here's the 22 examples of how that might actually be showing up in your life, how you might be doing that. So the first example I want to give you is from my own experience, from our own life, where with our daughter, we were literally feeding her from the spoon ourselves to make sure that she was eating up until the age of 5. Actually the age of 6, because there were other people in our family that were helping out, and it was coming from a place of love. We want to make sure that our daughter is eating, that there's no mess anywhere, that she's good. But can you imagine what that would feel like if, you right now would be spoon-fed? That there's someone that does not believe or doesn't trust in your own ability to simply feed yourself, to pick up a spoon and put that in your mouth and feed yourself. That you start to become dependent on this becoming one thing. And share with me what you think would be coming up either for the child or for the parent in these instances, and what you're thinking as well with such a example as spoon feeding your child and feeding your child practically every single meal throughout the day, up to the age of 5 or 6. So number one, this is how the child receives love, or to feel like they're being loved. And when you stop that, then all of a sudden start thinking, my mommy doesn't love me because she's not spoon feeding me anymore. Whereas that is not the truth. But at the same time, this is what the parent can think as well, is that I am showing love and I'm expressing love and yada, yada, yada. So that's one example. Another example is constant supervision, meaning that there is a fear or concern about leaving your child alone to either do something on their own or to go and hang out with their friend on their own. I know at least one family who does that they're not allowing their child to go and hang out with any one of their friends, and the only way that this child can hang out with a friend is at their own house and in their backyard where they can be seen at all times. Now, there's so many levels to that example, that by not allowing your child to have their own space, you're also causing them to not be able to start building that separation between you and a child and have a sense of independency, where they start to learn to trust themselves, to go from their house to their friend's house, to hang out at their friend's house. That there's a need to protect your child from everything and from everyone, because in the back of your mind you think that everyone and everything is evil, and that it is your job to be literally like a mama hawk or a papa hawk flying over your child to keep your child safe and protected. Now eventually that child is going to grow up and they're going to be insecure. They're going to be scared that there is no more of this hawk flying around and keeping them safe and protected from the crazy, scary world, because now they also believe that the world is crazy and scary. The way that is communicated plays a massive, massive impact on the child's development, their physical and especially their mental development. This also incorporates another point, another example, which is when your child is playing, being involved in their play, trying to regulate their play, that you play with your toys in this way, don't play in this way, do things this way, don't do this way. It's almost like directing or dictating the play to the child and taking away their creativity and their imagination from them by, being the producer of the show, dictating how the child should play, and at the same time, who they should play with and how they should play. Also, the next one is when it comes to homework. All the kids are going to get homework. And of course, your child is going to have a challenging time. Of course, they're going to be intimidated by homework. Of course, there's some things that they're not going to know. But you as a parent, it is your responsibility to instill trust in your child, to remind them that they are able to handle and manage and overcome anything that comes their way, including but not limited to the homework, that they can figure it out. The best thing you can do sometimes is to tell your child, I don't know how to help you with your homework, but let's go and watch some lessons on YouTube and help you to do that. So you're teaching your child how to solve their own problems without always running to mommy or always running to daddy to solve the problems for them, because the structure that you put in place of how you teach a child to deal with problems and overcome problems is how they're going to do it later on. And I'm sure you as a parent, I mean, some of you maybe will like this or maybe not, but for me, I wouldn't want my child to come and run to me with every single problem they have, unless it's a big massive problem and they can come and talk to me, but not come to me to give them a solution or resolution or what to do with, tell me how to deal with this problem, because I don't know how. My goal with my children is to help them to become independent adults, that they come to me for conversation and not to help solve problems, not to overcome something, not to fix something in their life. That is what my goal is with my kids, to have them become self-reliant and not become reliant on someone else. And another one, so this one I already mentioned this one when I was talking about the example of some parents literally being very protective of how their child is playing, as in like with who they're playing, and taking all of the protective measurements in place and putting them all in place to make sure that their child is protected, that the only time that our child is going to play with anyone is going to be under our supervision, because we don't trust anybody else's supervision. It's going to be either in our backyard or it's going to be in the living room, but it's not going to be in their bedroom. It's not going to be in a place where there is that you can't see, that you can't watch and you can't supervise. That is going to be in the place where I can see you, I can hear you, I know what's going on. So if, let's say, this friend is not talking to you in the way that I want your friend to talk to you, that I'm going to come in and I'm going to defend you. Whereas, can you imagine what this child would go through when they go to high school? All of you guys have been to high school, right? So you know how life changes when we go to high school, how now you go from grade 8 to grade 9 and you're exposed to all of these semi-adults who are living their life in a different way that they were and that you were prior to that switch from one school to the next school. And can you imagine what would happen, what the experience would be of that child that always had their parent come to their defense, their protection, and to always, after the friend leaves, then to have a conversation with that child and point out all of these things that they have observed from this playtime And then at the same time, make a decision of you're not going to be friends with that person, or we're going to limit your playtime with that person because I don't like how they looked at you. I didn't like how they looked at me. I didn't like how, they swung their hands around, or whatever the reasoning might be, whether it's legitimate or not. That is micromanaging, and that really what is under the umbrella of helicopter parenting is micromanaging your child's thoughts, your child's behaviors, your child's actions, your child's choices, what they're going to be doing, what they're not going to be doing, how they're going to be doing it, with whom, and a lot of different things. Another one, number 5, would be decision-making process. When your child is trying to decide on something, that in the end you take the decision away from them by deciding for them, making decisions for the child even when they are capable of making choices on their own. Can you imagine what that can do to a child? What consequences do you think would come from that way of approaching your parenting and you raising a child, that you decide all the things for the child, maybe even starting with what they're gonna wear? I initially started choosing outfits for my kids, our daughter first, and fairly quickly I recognized that why am I deciding on what my child is going to wear when I want her to figure out herself and her own style and what she likes and what she doesn't like on her own? So I started, and that happened fairly quickly because this was like so many years ago. Because she started saying that she started to express that she was interested in wearing something else, right? When they're a little baby, yeah, I understand. You're not going to ask a baby, what do you want to wear? This one or this one? Come on, choose. It's like asking a dog, what do you want to wear? This one or this one? A dog doesn't really care because they don't want to wear anything. A child doesn't really care because they don't want to wear anything. It's just something that's in the way of them and, their body. So, when a child starts to show interest in dressing themselves, let them. When a child starts showing interest in feeding themselves, let them. When a child starts to show interest in schoolwork, then let them. Don't do these things for them. Don't take over their homework and do their homework for them, because I've seen or I've heard of this approach being taken where I don't want my child to stress out. I want them to succeed. So being overly involved in their homework and really, really helping them with their homework is not going to help them to become successful. It's going to teach them that someone else is going to come and fix it for me. Somebody else is going to come in and solve it for me. Whereas if they're the ones going through the struggle, they're going to learn so much through that struggle. There are a ton of lessons through the struggle, but there are no lessons to be learned when everything is easy peasy lemon squeezy, when things are being done for them. Same thing with us. We all want someone to come in and solve our problems and get rid of the excess weight, get rid of our cravings that are not helping us, get rid of this mindset, get rid of that mindset. We all want those things just to boom and gone. But in reality, they'll come back just as quickly as they have left. And when they come back, they'll be so much harder. If we want to have an easy life, and we all want an easy life for our kids, that means that we got to do the hard things, the things that we don't want to do. Because by doing those things that are hard, everything else becomes easy, because we start to learn that even the hard is actually easy to do because the rewards are so worth it. But when we choose to do the easy thing, then our life becomes hard. And now when you take this approach to your child and you teach your child Don't teach your child that life is hard, life is difficult, life is this, life is that. Don't put that kind of mindset into your child. They're going to learn that regardless. Teach them that there are failures in life, but failure is not a failure. Each and every failure is the closest thing that gets you to success. This is what will help you to become the strongest person you can ever be. Your failures are just, are they stepping stones, or are they tumbling blocks? What are they to you? But what they are to you doesn't have to necessarily be the same thing for your kid. But in order for your kid to have a healthy mindset, you gotta have a healthy mindset. Because they're going to absorb that from you, whether you say it or not, but they're going to absorb it from you, from your actions, from your reactions, from how you actually show up energetically. That will transfer. Intrusive communication is the sixth one. Constantly checking in with your child and invading their privacy. When you overhear your child having a conversation with someone, it is really none of your business of what they're talking about. It's not. Honestly, it would not be much different if your parent overheard you having a conversation with one of your friends and then comes in and tries to help you because they're still your parent. You would not be okay with that. There's gonna come time and point in your child's life where whatever they're going through is none of your business. And the only time it will be is if they come to you and they invite you into their life. But if you continuously try to be part of their life and you force yourself in there into the conversations that they're having when you were not even invited into that conversation, and you try to help them, quote unquote, it's not going to feel like help. It's going to feel like you're invading their privacy. And they're not going to feel comfortable, and they're not going to feel safe in the house having these conversations, having these interactions. With, let's say, one example, if your child is playing, let's say, video games and they're yelling and screaming and it's inappropriate, yes, of course, you gotta let them know that, number one, why the screaming? Number two, why the foul language? If it's allowed in your house, good on you. And if it's not, good on you. You have rules. You have rules is boundaries as well. You have certain rules in your house. And if there's no swearing in your house, and if you hear swearing, of course you're going to address that. Because if the rules are being broken, then you got to address that. You got to let them know. But if the conversation is being held in the privacy of their bedroom, of their room, and the door's closed and you're eavesdropping, then you are invading their privacy. It's not much different than going and reading their diary. It's not your place. It's one of the worst invasions of privacy that a parent can do, is go and read their child's diary because they want to keep their child safe. I don't know if you've experienced that in your life. I personally have witnessed it, and it was not a pleasant experience. Whether experiencing or witnessing it, it is absolutely not pleasant, and I would not want that for anyone. So, over-involvement in activities, meaning that, number one, overcommitting the child to numerous extracurricular activities, all those after-school programs, without considering your child and their interests and their likes and their dislikes, that you just sign them up for. This one I have actually witnessed so many times, and I, in a way, also went into that same direction where There's certain things that we as parents, we wished we had, we wished we did as children, wished that we experienced as children, certain programs that we wished we were part of or that we did, and our parents said no for whatever reason. Most of the time the reasons were money. So now you're an adult and you have your own children, and you want to give your children all the things that you could not have. Granted, that's absolutely incredible that you are in the place where you are able to do that. But I want you to, if this is you or if this is someone you know, this is just for your information, not to go and invade their privacy and talk to them about it. But I want you to consider your child, and that your child is not you. Your child has their own likes, dislikes, interests, the hobbies that they're going to want. Yes, of course. If, let's say, I'll use myself as an example. When I was young, I attended, my parents signed me up. And this is also what I learned how to approach with my kids, because the way that my parents did, I'll always admire them for that. They listened to me. And I don't remember if they listened to me because I was persistent or because they listened to me and they respected me. Regardless, I felt seen, heard, and understood in these examples. So they signed me up. I was a very active kid. Couldn't sit still, but they signed me up for piano. I did not do well and signed me up for violin. So they let me not continue with those things. And then they signed me up for dance, and I really enjoyed dance. But then when, I think there was a point where I didn't enjoy it anymore, and I stopped it, or I continued going. I don't remember. This was, feels like it was a lifetime ago, because it was a lifetime ago. I feel like I've died and been reborn quite a few times throughout my life. You know, the spiritual awakening is what I refer to as, you know, dying and being reborn in a way, becoming a new, an evolved version of myself. So, and then when we came to Canada, I wanted to go to dance classes, but my parents simply could not afford them. I wanted to do ballet. Because that's what I remember doing and that's what I enjoyed, and this simply could not afford them because it was ridiculously expensive here in Canada, and we were brand new, starting from scratch with absolutely nothing. My parents spent every single penny they had just to bring us here, and which was a substantial amount of money. So I didn't get to go and do the dancing here in Canada. But I got to experience all those things back in Russia. So now we have our children, and then also my husband expressed to me that he wanted to do like kickboxing and karate when he was growing up, but his parents couldn't afford that, so he never got to do what he wanted to do. So with our kids, we put our kids with our daughter first. There's 3.5 years difference. Our daughter went to dance. She started with karate actually first. So she started with karate first, and she went and enjoyed it until she didn't. And then when she let us know that she was no longer interested, we actually heard her and we took her out and we put her into dance. She went into dance for a few years and then no longer was interested in that. So we let her choose to not be part of that anymore. And our son, he went to karate as well. And then fairly quickly, he was not interested because he had a different understanding of what he thought karate was going to be, because his experience of being in karate was Mila is in class doing her thing and he's running around and playing and having fun. He's a very hyperactive child. So when he had to be in actual karate and stand and be, you know, strict and not move around, it was very, very, very challenging for him. And being called out in front of the class is also not fun for anyone. So we took our kids out. Yes, especially with our son, we tried to keep him and convince him to try another class, but within 2 classes, after he said, I don't want to do this anymore, he tried another one. We said, okay, you don't want to, that's fine. You tried, you didn't give up. We're not going to do that anymore. So, whereas there are other parents who don't listen to their child, who will help their child to feel remotivated, re-inspired, and the child does not really even continue to enjoy what they're doing, because really what they feel through the process of motivation and inspiration, they start to feel a lot of guilt and a lot of shame and responsibility that I have to do this for my mom or have to do this for my dad. And eventually when the child grows up and they really start to find their voice and who they are, some of them find a voice and they speak and they use it and they let their parent know, I don't want to do this, I never really did, I was doing it for you. While others will continue to stay quiet and do what essentially their parents tell them to do. So keeping those things in mind. Rebecca, hey Rebecca, how are you doing, beautiful? Said, my mom and sister used to read my diary and it is still devastating to me. To this day, I don't trust them. Honestly, it really breaks my heart when people go to such extremes to invade someone's privacy. It makes me think that the person whose diary was read was literally undressed and was forced to take their clothes off in front of an audience. And that is absolutely not okay. That's why I do not agree with invading someone's privacy, because they are allowed to have that privacy. Just because that is your child, that does not give you the right to go into the very private place such as a diary. It's like the innocence is being taken away from that. Or going through a child's belongings, going through their things, going through their items. To me, that's a massive invasion of privacy. And like I said, it is not much different than you taking your child and undressing them and forcing them to stand naked right there in front of an audience. Whether it's just you and your other daughter, that is absolutely not okay. That is something that the child, like you, Rebecca, will remember for the rest of your life. And whether you heal from that or not, that's still going to be part of your experience and memory of how you view these people, their character. And it would make sense that that experience can start to seep into different parts of your life, where you start to not trust other people, and what you say to this person or what you share with the person, that they're not going to take it and share it with everybody else, and once again cause you to feel like you're naked in front of an audience. And then Rebecca says, I influence my kids to try things, but if they don't like it, I don't push. Perfect. That's the best way to approach it, especially, like I said, in my experience. That's something that I will always be grateful for. My parents not pushing me and allowing me to figure myself out and figure my journey out. Yes, there's some parts I wished my parents pushed me, but honestly, not that I wished. It's more like I kind of hoped that they would have pushed me into doing certain things, but I'm always forever grateful that they didn't, because I would have been a different person. I would have been a different path. I would have been on a different path than I am now, and I would not change anything about what I have experienced, what I have gone through in my life, no matter how devastating it was, because it has made me who I am today. And that's the mindset I've always had. And because I've had this type of mindset my whole entire life, all I've seen is the validation of everything that I went through. It was for a reason. I even remember going through high school, how dating people or getting to know people, and being hurt, I would be asked, do you regret or do you wish you didn't date this person, that you didn't have this experience? And I always said, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I know that it was not easy, but I know that it has taught me a lot. And that's not something that I would ever take back. And even just thinking back of my teenage self, I'm, in the way not to pat on my own shoulder, but you gotta pat on your own shoulder. You gotta toot your own horn once in a while. That I was and still am impressed of my maturity. And that's something that I am trying to pass down to my children as well. And that's through conversations, through exposing them, not telling them what to do or how to do it unless they ask me, but just educating them. And then Rebecca said, it's different parenting styles. There is no wrong answer, but that does not determine their programming. And then said, yes, it's so violating. Yeah, violating to your diary being read. And 100%, we all have different parenting styles. Even the things that are being mentioned here, they can be used in a different way without it being controlling, without it being overbearing, or without it being like that you are so involved and taking over your child's life. Okay, let's keep going. Number 7 is over-involvement in activities, which I already covered, which is overcommitting the child to numerous. Oh no, that one I was just that's the one I was just talking about. Number 8, rescuing from failure. Intervening in situations where the child could learn from failure or disappointment, where you are getting involved and you're trying to fix what, or trying to solve what your child is going through, what is failure, or what you might interpret as failure, so that way they don't deal with it, so that way they don't feel hurt. I'm doing a live video, sweetie. I'm gonna be a little bit.
I'm just saying that I'm home.
Okay, thank you.
And I don't think I have to go to my exam.
Huh?
Like I think I did go on my exam, but I also think I didn't do well on my exam.
Okay, well, we'll talk about it in a little bit, okay?
When are you gonna be done?
I don't know, maybe another 15 minutes?
Okay.
Okay. My daughter just came back from doing an exam, first exam ever, which is perfect right here, rescuing from failure. That whatever the case may be, it is my job is to help my child to feel good about what they have experienced. If you need some help and suggestions, I can give that to you, but I'm not going to go and fix it for you. I'm not going to go and solve it for you. When it comes to their friends, they're going to have disagreements with friends. They're going to have fights. They're going to have arguments with their friends. It's not my place to go and solve it for them. It's not my place to go and fix it for them. I can help with helping my children to understand both sides. But in the end, they're the ones that are going to go and deal with it. They're the ones that are going to go and face music, so to speak, and then get to choose if they want to continue being friends with this person or not. But not for me to say, no, you can't. In certain situations, we do, as a parent, have the right or the place to say, no, you cannot be friends with this person, because we know that this person, let's say your child is not using anything, and this child is exposed to a lot of things that no child should be exposed to. That child's lifestyle is entirely different than yours, and you know that the path that this child is on is not going to be the one that is going to be what most will say is a successful path, that this child might end up in prison one day. Of course, then it's our job to make sure that as a parent, we teach our children who to associate themselves with. And in some extreme cases, we gotta say, no, you cannot be friends with this person. Whereas at the same time, we can, all we're doing is assuming, because we don't entirely know the whole entire story, and that maybe this child actually is going to end up in an amazing place, right? So in most cases, what we can do is just educate our child and allow them to make those choices, and allow them to make those mistakes, and to overcome them. They're going to have heartbreak as well. You're not going to go and have an argument, have a discussion with whoever broke their heart. That person also has gone through something in order for whatever has happened happen. It's our place and our job to help our children through it, but not to actually do all the hard work and the heavy lifting for them. And then Rebecca said, who our parents are part of the journey. 100%. 100%. Also, overemphasis on achievement, meaning that placing an extreme focus on academic success or achievements are extreme at the expense of overall well-being, meaning that, and we see this in some cultures, where school is the most important thing. Your academics, your grades, all of those things are the most important thing. You don't need no friends. You don't need to have any extracurricular activities. You're not doing any of that. You're not going out and having fun. You are studying because that is what is the most important thing. And if you fail, there's going to be consequences. There's going to be punishment. Now, that's, of course, the extreme example. And I'm sure there's even more extreme examples of this. But when we put so much pressure on our kids and their school and how well they did on their tests or on their exams, that just the sheer pressure of our expectations on our kids can cause them to crumble under pressure. Which at the same time, some will say, oh no, it will help them to, that's how the diamonds are made. Diamonds are made under pressure. But kids are very fragile. They're very gentle. They're very soft. They lead with their heart until the age of 27. And then they switch into the head. So right now, everything is in the heart. They're feeling. They're mostly heart. They're mostly love. And then later on, they switch into the program and they are living that program. And they start to become more aware of that program. They're already living in the program because after the age of 7, they're already been programmed and they're just living it. And it gives us that window of helping them to reprogram the programming. Not to do it for them, but to help them become aware of it and help them to choose what they want to change and how and whatnot. Now, number 10 is when we limit our kids and their independence, what they're allowed to do on their own, meaning restricting our child independence in daily tasks such as dressing or preparing meals or feeding or cleaning. They are more than capable of cleaning up themselves. They are more than capable of feeding themselves. They are more than capable of actually making a meal, even at a young age or youngish age. Obviously, at 1 year old, they're not going to be able to make a meal, but even at 1 year old, I mean, I'm sure they can be taught how to put something in the microwave. And Rebecca says, or doing their own homework. Yes, they're more than capable of doing their own homework without you having to sit there and let's go. Is it done? Let's go. We're teaching them independence and not dependence. And understanding the difference can really help us to see the fine line between. And by removing yourself as much as you can and not being so involved in your child's life is going to help your child to become independent. The way that many of us were raised, some of us wish we weren't raised that way. That's not me. I'm glad the way that I was raised, while others, they don't like that they were raised that way. And what I mean by that is that our parents, my parents, were working from early in the morning until quite late in the evening. We rarely, if ever, really had meals together. I got to do what I wanted to do after school. Before school, there wasn't much time, but I would go to school on my own. I would walk. This was back in Russia as well, even to grade 1. When I was, 7 years old, I would walk for half an hour by myself to school and from school. Yes, we're living in a little bit of a different world now where I mean, even then, kids were still going missing. There was still trafficking of kids and all that kind of stuff. Small towns, big towns, doesn't matter. It was happening all across. But kids had so much more independence back then versus now. Because now we have so much more awareness of the dangers that we as parents become petrified and paralyzed and scared that we do everything we possibly can to keep our child safe, and in doing so we pass our fears and our own securities onto our children. So I would walk to school on my own from a very young age, and like I said, even here in Canada, I would even take a bus from one place to another place if I wanted to go somewhere. You figure your way out. Here's a map, go figure it out. The internet wasn't what it is now, and I learned how to be independent on my own. And now kids are not being raised in that way. Kids are a lot more scared than they used to be. And yes, a lot of them will, come across as very confident, and they know what they're doing and how, but how many of those kids even know how to get from where you are now to, let's say, the other end of town to some specific location they want to get to? How would they figure out how to get there on their own without the phone? I had to figure that out without having internet. Here's the map, here's this. You go to the bus station and you see the different maps on there and figure out where you're going and how you're going to get there. What bus you got to take, where you got to get off, and remember where you got to get off. And then you're going to take another bus, and then where you're going to get off from that bus, you get to another bus, and then where you're going to, and it's literally like I was zigzagging to get from one place to another place. In order for me to get there, I had to go through 3 or 4 or 5 different bus stops and remember what they were and where it was going to be located and go and do that. The kids nowadays, do you think they would be able to do that confidently? I'll say my kids, honestly, not so much so. Maybe my son would be super excited, but he'd still be a little nervous and scared. Mind you, he's only 10 years old, but I was doing that at 13, so there's still 3 more years there. So it's very, very different. With our daughter, last summer, she wanted to go. We live in a small town. She wanted to go hang out with her friends at a school that she's never been to, and I could have easily driven her. It would take me just 2 minutes to drive her there, 2 minutes to drive her back, but as I mentioned, I'm on a mission to help my kids become independent and not dependent. She has a bicycle. I had friends over. And yes, my friends could have waited. They could have come with me. But that's not how I'm going to teach my child independence. There's a bicycle. You can use the GPS. It'll tell you where to go, even without GPS. Tell her, and I was the one telling her, you come from here, you go on your bike, you go literally straight all the way, you see this name of the street, and then you go. It took her half an hour to figure it out. She called. She was a little upset because she got lost, but in the end, she figured it out. And she felt empowered by her doing something that she didn't even think was ever possible for her. And she was scared, but she figured it out. And she ended up having so much more and take away her pain and her suffering and her fears. But they were not mine to take away. They were hers to. They were for her to overcome. They were for her to experience. So that way she could become a stronger person. By me doing these things for her, it was not going to make her a stronger person. If anything, would do the opposite, or make her into a weaker person, where she starts to become dependent on me doing these things for her and helping her out, if you will. So teaching them independence. Number 11, failure to develop resilience. Shielding a child from challenges prevents development of resilience and coping skills. That example was perfect. I helped her to build some resilience and overcome her fear of failure. She was scared to fail. She was scared that she wasn't going to get it. She was scared that she wasn't going to find it. She was scared she was going to get lost. She was going to go the wrong way. But she figured it out in the end. Number 12, inability to solve problems. Meaning that children may struggle with problem-solving skills due to lack of practice. It's very normal. We're not born knowing how to solve all the problems. We figure that out. We learn through solving the problem. We learn from failure to solve a problem, how we can do it better next time. We learn through all of that. The struggle itself is the lesson as well. There's so much power in a struggle, and letting them figure that out on their own is going to be very beneficial. Your child, my child is studying. I don't get involved in her studying. I'm not part of that. The only part I have is make sure you go study, and I can suggest of how you can study, what is expected on your exam, what you're going to be doing the exam, what is the exam going to be like. Okay, so you're doing an essay. Perfect, great. Why don't you go practice writing that essay? So that way when you go to write the essay, you know exactly what you're writing. That's how you study for that. At the same time as review all the information that the essay is going to be on. That's that. I'm not doing anything else for her. Or even better, what is the exam going to be about? How are you going to do it? Right? It's going to be an essay. Okay. What do you think would be, give me 5 examples of the best way to get prepared for you for that exam. So that way you are successful. They'll give you the 5 different ways. Okay. Which one do you want to start off trying first? They might even come up with that idea on their own of, I can actually go and write that essay. So, and here's the kicker. If we are the ones giving the solution to our child of this is how you can study, because this is going to help you, they're going to be less likely to try because it was not their idea. And we all know this about ourselves. When someone tells us what to do, we don't like to do that. We'll figure that out on our own because we know we got this. So by asking, what are the 5 different ways how you can study? And then they'll say the 5 ways. Out of the 5 ways, it might be actually write the essay and try and test it out. Okay, which one of the 5 ways would you like to start studying? Which one do you think will be the most valuable, beneficial? Whatever question you want to ask without trying to lead them in any specific direction. By allowing them, you have the 5, pick one of the 5. That's essentially the goal, is you pick one of the 5 and do that one first, right? If that fails, go to the next one. And then by doing that, they came up with the ideas all on their own, which they're going to feel great about. And then you're also allowing them to choose what you want to do, allowing them that independence of choice as well. And then when they choose, they're going to feel great about their choice, and they're going to actually go and do it. And if they don't like doing it, they'll come to you and say, I actually decided I'm going to try a different one out of the 5. Not that one, because I don't like it or enjoy it, or whatever the reason might be. Yeah. Oh, hey, Peggy. Good morning to you, beautiful. Then I think that was with the comments. Rebecca said, we should not push kids into independence, though we all grow at our own pace. I guess it would depend. I would actually, in a way, argue that point, that if we don't push our kids into independence, they're not going to choose it for themselves. Many kids will not choose it for themselves, because even for us, using us as adults as an example, when someone does something for us and we're used to it, why on earth would we want to change? We want to keep things the way they are because it's comfortable, it's convenient. But by being pushed, or by pushing our children outside of their comfort zone, they're going to grow in that area and become more resilient in that area. With certain things, no, they're not ready to be independent in that, but in many other areas, yes. Because the goal is to, how do you know? I remember there was something that, a blog that I came across talking about, how do you know if you were a good parent and you did a great job raising your child? And the response was something along the lines of, if your child is not coming to you and asking you for help, and with their problems, with all those different things, that they're figuring things out on their own, and they just come and have a conversation with you, and that's it, just like a fun conversation, then that means you did a great job as a parent. by teaching your child all of the skills and knowledge that they would need for life independent from you, that they're not attached to you. Yeah, so there's that response that I have to not pushing kids for independence. Like I said, with some things, yes, but with a lot of other things, we do want them to be independent. And I would also question, where is, if the thought is, I don't want my child to be independent in this thing or in this area, I would ask, where is it coming from? Or why would you not want your child to be independent in that specific area? And it will help you to understand your own roots, where it might be coming from your own experiences, why you would not want that area or your child to be independent in that specific area. At the same time, it might be because it's actually dangerous, and that's entirely different, I think. And then Rebecca says, sometimes the most we can do is inspire, nudge, and lead by example. Yeah. And at the same time, sometimes we can tell them, you're doing this, and I am not going to be doing it for you. Just like I did with my daughter, where I told her, you're going to be biking, you're going to go to see your friends. I am not going to be doing it for you. I was pushing her to be independent, and she did not want to. She was upset, but in the end, she ended up doing it, and she felt great about herself. And I did the same thing. I was asking, why am I not wanting for her to be independent? Because I actually did want to drive her, even with the bicycle, to load her in the truck and bring her with the bicycle there, but I did not want to do that. I wanted to bring her there, but I started questioning, why did I want to do it for her? And then in doing so, I started to uncover that it was my own fears, my own insecurities, and my own way of keeping her close to me. So she needed me. But what do I want for my kids? I want my kids to be independent, and which means that I too have to go through that separation. And it's one of the hardest things to go through as a parent, especially as a mother, to separate ourselves from our child, to allow our child to go off in the world on their own, because we had to do that ourselves, and it was scary and uncomfortable. Rebecca says, yay, Mila. I'll tell her. And then she says, my daughter is straight A student, and she created her own study habits. Amazing. And I would say my daughter also has created her own study habits. For now, grade 9 is a little different than grade 8 and 7. She was practically a B or A student. And she did all of the studying, all of that kind of stuff on her own. And Rebecca said, there is a process for anything. Unruly emotions may cause a trauma. Anything can cause a trauma. Even us doing things for our kids can also cause a trauma. When we try to avoid causing trauma in our kids, we can end up doing the opposite. We can end up doing or causing more damage. It's like when we are trying to be at work, for example, right? You're trying to get noticed, you're trying to do the best you can be, trying to be the best employee you can possibly be. And for some reason, because you're trying to be your best self, you end up failing. You end up messing up. And it's like, why is this happening when I'm trying to be the best version of myself, when I'm trying to do the best I can be or do the best I can do, and I'm not? Like, that's what ends up happening as well, is that by trying to be the best, we bring out the worst in us, right? We experience the worst in us, and that itself can also start to cause trauma, right? So no matter what we do, there's going to be some trauma caused. Even if we're the best parent there is, by being the best, can also cause some trauma. So, meaning, instead of trying so hard to avoid causing trauma, do your very best and become aware of yourself and what you're doing and your part in it. And that's all really we can do, is be the best that we can be and learn from our failures, because we're going to have them as parents. We will. Can't escape that. And then Rebecca says, my daughter resisted getting a license for years when she was in college. I nudged by telling her that I would drive her for one semester, but after that she would have to take public transport or go get a license. She made the choice, no trauma. That is also an option, right? But in a way, it's nudging, but at the same time it's saying, okay, I will help you out and I will do this for you. But when we get to this point, you have option A and you have option B. I'm no longer an option, right? So in a way, it is also forcing them to make a choice that does not involve you. It might come across and be in a way of nudging them, but it also comes to a point, okay, I'm no longer an option. You have option A and option B. The choice is yours. I was there, I helped you out, now it's up to you. Same thing with my daughter. I drove her to all these places, I brought her to all these places. Now I'm no longer an option. You have option A, you have option B. Option A, you walk. Option B, you bike. One will get you there faster, the other one gets you there slower. Which one do you want? That's the only options. No, I want you driving. No. Option A and option B. Which one do you want? So in a way, it's also could be used as I'm nudging her that this is what's going to be happening. But at the same time, it is in a way forcing them or helping them, not forcing them, but pushing them towards independence by taking and removing ourselves from the options, so that way they are in a way forced to figure out on their own. We gotta force our kids, we gotta push our kids or nudge our kids out of the nest. If they fly, they fly. If they fall, they fall. Some mama birds are able to help their babies back up into the nest, while other mama birds have to just let nature take its course, depending on the species. I guess depending on the child themselves. Okay. Number 13, anxiety and fear of failure. So normal. All of us go through this. Children may develop anxiety about making mistakes or fear of failure. If we make them feel bad about things over and over and over again, they're going to develop fear of making mistakes, fear of failure. But if we help our kids to start approaching life in the way of, how did you fail today? What did you learn from your failure? What are you going to do about what you learned from your failure? How are you going to make sure that you're going to do what you say you're going to do about this failure, about this lesson that you have learned? What are you going to do when something gets in the way of you doing what you say you're going to do? Okay. So what we're doing in this process is we're helping our child to see that failure is not the end. Failure is just the beginning. And failure itself is a failure is disguised as opportunity. And we're all going to fail. That's life. But failure is not a bad word. We just have negative attachments to the word failure. But in reality, failure is a very good word. We just need to relearn the definition of failure and help our kids to do the same thing. It's a mindset. Rebecca says, great topic, Yana. Thank you. I'm glad you like this topic. I find that it's beneficial not just for us as parents, but for us as human beings as well, because we get to learn quite a bit about how we were even raised and how now we're raising our children as well. Dependency issues. Number 14, creating dependency on parents for decision making or problem solving, or from getting from point A to point B, or from doing homework or not doing homework. We don't want to create those dependency issues. Poor social skills. Limited opportunity to develop social skills due to over-control and limited interaction with peers. Like I mentioned earlier, there are some parents who don't allow their kids to go and hang out with other kids, who keep them cooped up at home and everything happens in their own house. And then also there's parents who homeschool their kids and they only socialize within their house, and they're not going and developing these social skills. They're not going out into the world because interaction is scary. Interaction is scary for all of us, or at least was or could be at some point of our life. But if we want our kids to survive in this world, they need to have some good or amazing social skills. And the way that they learn them is by practicing, not by watching, not by listening, but by actually practicing them, by going out there and making this friend, and then losing that friend, learning from that experience, maybe getting that friend back, losing them again and learning from that, or making another friend, losing that friend. And this is where we learn what kind of friends we want, what kind of friends we don't want, what kind of relationship we want, what we don't want, how we want it. We learn it from gaining and losing, from hands-on experience, not by sitting there and watching documentaries or trainings or lessons or whatever it is. We just learn the surface level stuff by watching or learning from someone else. But most of the learning, and the most valuable learning, is when we're actually in it and we're doing it and we're practicing ourselves. Low self-esteem. Constant scrutiny can lead to child having poor self-image and low self-esteem. That one I feel like I don't need to explain much, but the one thing I want to say is sometimes what we think we're saying is positive might actually be received as negative. So watching and paying attention to what we say and how we say it, and replaying it back, if in a way of how would we have received that message if we were in their shoes and in their position, and then how can we do it better next time, how can we say it better next time, reevaluating and rewriting it so that way next time around we do a better job, not punishing ourselves for it. So when you children, lack of initiative. Children may struggle to take initiative or make decisions independently. So this is where teaching and reminding our child that you are the one at choice. You get to choose what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. And then not forcing them to do something, but maybe, like Rebecca said, nudging them or convincing them or helping them to see the other side, because that choice itself might be scary, but we want them to make that choice and that decision. So asking questions similar to what I was talking about with the exam, of how could you study for the exam, whatever it is, the problem is, or decision you need to make. Okay, so let's say there's 5 different decisions, or let's say there's only 2 decisions that they need to make. So for each decision number 1, what are the 5 positive things that can come from this decision? Okay, great. What are the 5 negative things that can come from this decision? Okay, great. Now do the same thing for the second decision. Now that you have done that and you're very clear on the positive and the negative from each decision, which way would you prefer to go? They're the ones at choice. They're the ones that are now also learning a valuable skill on how to make decisions. Out of the 2 choices that you have, what is the best one out of them both? And then also at the same time reminding them, if that one doesn't work out and you change your mind, because we'll learn through experience, meaning that because you wanted this does not mean that that's actually what you're going to want. And if you decided as you're, let's say you made the decision on decision number 1, you said yes to this one because it sounded and seemed better based on these 5 responses or the 10 responses, the positive and the negative, then when you go and you say yes to the decision, you go and you do it, you recognize that, no, actually, I don't want that. I want the other one. Remind your child, and at the same time yourself, because we all go through this as well, that you're not stuck with that decision. You can go to the second one and try that out. And as you're trying that out, guess what might happen? You might have decision on option number 3 that comes up. And then you figure out maybe that's the one you want to do after vetting it for yourself. Number 18, difficulty handling criticism. Number 1 that comes to mind, if you yourself or you as the parents in your house, in your household, if you can't handle criticism and how you respond or react to criticism, then your children will learn from that. Number 2 that comes to mind is that not everything needs to be criticism. Criticism itself can come across in a very light and positive way without bringing anyone down and making anyone feel bad. And even in doing so, even as gentle as we are, it can still feel bad. So doing your very best and also reminding that it's not personal, that it's not an attack, it's just helping you. An overprotected child may find it challenging to handle criticism or constructive feedback, meaning that if you yourself, I'm not saying that go and criticize your child, but if your child never has experienced any shape or form of criticism, and now they're going out into the world and going into a job where now they experience criticism for the first time ever, they're not going to know how to deal with that challenge. They might crumble under that pressure. And I'm not saying it for you to go and start criticizing your child. I'm saying it to not shelter your child from the world and from the opportunities of the world by not exposing them to other people who might be critical, or to bring them to an experience where they might experience or be part of the criticism. Don't shelter your child from the world. I'm sure there's even classes that you can go to where the child might not experience criticism directed to them or at them, but they can learn from others' experiences as well by just being an observer. Number 19, strained parent-child relationships, meaning excessive control can strained parent-child relationship. Excessive control can strain the parent-child relationship, leading to resentment. And this does actually happen quite often. Some of you might have experienced it either yourself or you've noticed in your partner, where everything was done for them, everything was controlled, decisions were made for them, homework was done for them, and there was an excessive amount of control that was, taken from them or used on the child, that the child was just a child. The child didn't get to do what they really wanted to do, and eventually that will lead to resentment. Meaning that starting to identify how you might be showing up in a controlling way in your relationship with your child or children, and see how you can reverse that, how you can change that, how you can rewrite it, and how you can own up to it as well. Number 20, academic burnout. It's very similar to putting a lot of pressure on the excessive, overemphasis on achievement. It's very similar on academic burnout. Pressure to achieve can lead to academic burnout and dislike for learning. So if we continue to force and pressure a child to learn, they're gonna hate learning, right? And they'll have negative association with even the word learning and education itself. Number 21, risk aversion. Fear of failure may lead to risk-averse behavior, hindering personal and professional growth. So if we're trying to protect our child by keeping them safe and by taking time to identify what the risk could be, and don't do this because this and this and this could happen, don't do this because this and this and this could happen, that they're also going to have fear of failure, and there will be less likely to take risks in life, or any risks at all. And they're gonna learn to live a very safe and sheltered life in their own bubble and not do anything that could potentially be considered risky or dangerous, which can and often does hinder growth, whether it's on a personal level or on a career level, professional level. And the last one is limited exploration. Helicopter parenting can limit child exploration and curiosity, stifling creativity and innovation. I think that one is self-explanatory. I don't need to go much deeper into that one. It's important to allow our children to explore their curiosity and do the things that they want to do, try different things. You want to try this? Okay, great. You want to try this? Okay, great. You want to try this? It could be dangerous, but how can we make it safe? Let the child answer, or let the child see how it could be dangerous. You want to also help them to learn and try to identify the risk, the dangers, all these things that could come up without you filling their brain with your knowledge and wisdom, right? Allow them to express it, and then also allow them to ask you, well, what do you think, mommy? Because they're also you lead by example, and they're gonna do the same thing. They'll see that you're asking them and you're inviting them for a conversation, and you ask them to give examples, and then they can turn it around and ask you, well, what would be your 5 examples of this one? And then you could share when you're invited into that. And then when the choice comes, they're the ones that get to choose, whether it's from your list or from their list, regardless, right? It's like brainstorming. One of my favorite things that I do with my clients, by the way. And then Rebecca says, it becomes evident when a human has been helicopter parented. Oh, 100%. They're often referred to as a mama's boy, or a mama's girl, or a daddy's girl. Yeah, that's really where it comes from, because there is so much connection, which is dependency, that is built in the relationship that can, and often does, hinder and affect the relationship that that child chooses to have later on, until they finally cut that umbilical cord and figure out how they're gonna do life on their own, until they become independent, because they're still dependent. That's where daddy's girl or mama's girl or mama's boy or daddy's boy, or whatever phrase you want to call it, that's where it comes from. Because there's still that connection, that dependency, and there's still that umbilical cord and attachment is. I mean, in some instances, it could be from the fact that, as right now we're talking about all of these, that the relationship is actually a deep relationship, where there's conversation, there's communication, open and honest. And in the same way of, how wouldn't you go to your mom and dad if they, if you have a problem in your life? They don't jump and help you to solve the problem, but they really just help you to figure that out on their own. And eventually, even those kids, they're not going to come to their parents with those problems unless that problem is really, really, really big, right? So in that case, they're still independent, but when something serious happens, they're still going to go to their mom and dad, but they're living an independent life because they have all the tools that they need to live their life. So there is a difference. If the parent was there helping the child through life, as we're meant to, not doing things for them, that there's still going to be times when certain things happen, that the child knows that their parents are a safe place to go to help them in dealing with this, and that they're not going to do it for them. They're just going to help it by asking the right questions to help them figure out the answers on their own. They're not going to helicopter parent it, even at that age and stage, that they're going to trust that you know everything that you need to know. All you need to do is just have a conversation and a couple of questions asked, and you're going to figure it out. That's it. And literally, that's it. That's all I have for you guys for today. Thank you on being on here with me as well. I just wanted to plant a little bit of a seed that starting on Monday, I'm going, Anna and I, we are putting a challenge together that we're going to introduce to everybody in this community, in this group, and across our socials as well, that will help you to understand your good girl mold. Just going to be a 5-day challenge. So just planting a little bit of a seed. Keep your eyes and ears open, and so that way you can sign up for it. And it's going to be free. There's nothing to it. You can sign up to it and be a part of it, and go through it and see yourself on the other side after the 5 days of that challenge. And then Rebecca says, it depends on the personality of your child too. We can't use the same strategy for each kid. No, we can't use exactly the same strategy, but the strategy is just a strategy. It is, it's like it's a blueprint, but it is not the actual blueprint for every single human being. It just means that as a parent, we get to see this blueprint and readjust it and recreate it to fit our specific child's needs. Because every child that we have is going to be different. Every child across the world is going to be different, which also means every human being is different. And what works for one does not necessarily mean it's going to work for the other. The other one, majority of it might work, but it's also up to the other person or child to adjust what's working here and make it their own. Anyways, that is all. So I'll see you on the other side of on the challenge side, and other than that, I will see you on Monday at 11:30 for my card reading Eastern time. And I believe that is all. That's all I have for you guys for today. Thank you for being on here with me. I saw Rebecca, Debbie was on here, Peggy was on here. Thank you for being on here. And those of you who are the silent watchers, I say hi. Or give this the love, because thumbs up. One secret I'll tell you about the reaction to the posts and to the videos is that Facebook wants you to show that you really like something by taking a second longer by giving a different kind of emoji aside than thumbs up. The thumbs up is the basic one. It's almost like white noise to Facebook. So if you're giving any other emoji to a post or reaction or whatever it's called to a post or to a video, then it's going to see, ooh, this person or this people took the time and energy to like it, so it must be better than just thumbs up. So other than that, thank you, and I shall see you all next time. Have an amazing the rest of your day. Have an amazing weekend. Stay warm if you are living in a cold place, or stay cool if you're living in a hot place. And send some heat this way. And I'll send some cold that way if it's too hot. So let's exchange the temperatures a little bit. But other than that, until next time, thank you everybody. Bye.